Hey guys, Mike here. So today we get to answer your questions and go over some comments. And some of you made some very good observations, which I'm going to point out. So kudos to you. Some of you also asked me about certain stocks, which I will put in this video. And understand, if I call your stock hot garbage, don't take that offensively. It's not about you or anything else. We've all been there, okay? But when you see these charts, you might say, and of course, back me in the comments and go, yeah, whew, doesn't mean they're not going to turn, but oh my goodness. Yes, if you're in a stock and it's down 50% since the market turned and everything else has been roaring, it's not a good sign. I'm just saying. So I will cover a few of those, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'm going to get right into it. Now, the first one was a great observation here, and he said you should look into the monthly SPY chart for the last 20 years and look how it interacts with the 50 EMA. It hasn't touched it for months. Look what happens when this occurred in the past. And when we pull it up, you can see right here, this is the 50 EMA on the monthly chart. And of course, you can see a lot of times when it comes down, it tries to touch it. If it fails, you're going for a crash, right? But when you're really looking for is just a basic come down to touch it and bounce. And you see that happening many times over the years here. You can see to the right how very far extended we are up right there. And yes, we haven't touched it for a long time on the monthly chart right there, as you can see. But when we pull in the weekly here, I mean, you can get a better view of this right here. And so again, you're looking for a touch, but in 2020, 2021, didn't touch it. Obviously had to crash 2022. But we did come down and touch it right there in October of 2023, came below it actually, and so got the bounce. So it's been a minute when you pull up a weekly on this EMA right here since it's touched or whatever. But this can go on for quite a while when you look back. And so all we're doing is looking, okay, are we overextended? Are we going to come down and touch it again? Eventually, but again, here it was, what is that? Almost a year and 9 months before it happened. So this can go on for a long, long time. So just kind of keep that in mind. And especially when you're in a raging market like we are right now. And so, good observation. We'll definitely keep an eye on that, and I'll keep you updated. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, next one comes here from Christopher. I found out by watching other videos about the ARM stock you spoke of. There are people who, by law, had to promise not to sell the stock until a certain amount of time at the IPO. Will have their first chance to take profit on March 12th. And this is one of those semiconductor stocks that have just gone raging crazy, right? And this is what he's talking about. It was an IPO not too long ago, and so on March 12th, that's when they can actually start selling these shares, and they are up massive since the IPO. And of course, he's asking, what do you think this thing's coming down to, or whatever? And your guess is as good as mine, but I got the blue line here to mark it on March 12th because we ain't got to March 12th yet, right? And so this thing's going to break out one way or the other. If it breaks up, it's going to be even higher, right? So who knows if it's going to come down to 90 or whatever number you put in the comments. But when you look at this, you're going to have support around 122 right there. Again, that would put right down in that RTH gap, so that'd be a nice drop right there if it happened. You got a huge RTH gap below that with the 50 EMA, huge volume gap because it is a new stock. And then, of course, when you pull up your fibs, what's a 50% retracement? Assuming we're going to pull it from the big move up to the top, and that puts it about the same area, around 117, 120, which would be, like a 25% pullback if that happens. And so, we'll keep an eye on that and let me know what you think that it's going to pull back, if it's going to pull back at all. After March 12th, and they start having people probably will share and take profits, I would think. I mean, they're up massively. So let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Now, and guys, before we continue, if you could hit that like button for me, I sure would appreciate it. It helps people find this video and everything. And also, if you like the content, think about subscribing, guys. Next one says, what do you see happening to Apple? Keeps hitting support at 180. A lot of you guys ask about Apple, and it's funny because today, I talked about this level, I think, with the members. I don't know if I put it in the regular videos right there. And, of course, it dropped below it on Friday. But, again, they saved it at the end of the day and pushed it back up. So it did not close and set a new lower low. But, of course, Apple was like crap. But guess what the market's doing? It's rallying without it. I think we talked about this either last Saturday or the Saturday before when somebody asked that question. And it's because of NVIDIA and semiconductors and a lot of other breath coming in the market where they're starting to pile into other stocks now. And so to see the market rally in the NASDAQ, go up over a 1%, 1.5%, and without Apple, and it's been doing this. This rally has been without Apple for quite a while now. And so this is what happens to stocks. Who knows? I'm not an Apple hater, but I don't believe it needs to be, even in the top 5 as far as weights, because I know how they manipulate their numbers with all the stock buybacks, their earnings and everything. And it's a powerful company, but I've always said Microsoft and many others have way more growth in their earnings and need to be ahead on the weighting. And so maybe Apple's, people are finally going, maybe we'll just kind of go ahead, and it's still a good stock. People are still going to buy it. Warren Buffett still owns it. But, you know, it's not maybe once what it was, especially now that this AI craze is taking place. And they bought a bunch of AI companies, but they're just behind the 8 ball on this. And so who knows where it's going to go. But the fact the market's rallying without it, it kind of seems like for now it's kind of left it behind. And so it's actually a good sign for the market if you're a bull. Now, next comes from Dr. Mark. He says, hey, Mike, question for your video. Which sector of stock do you feel is the most undervalued at this point? Some stocks that may have been overlooked and still have some really good long-term outlooks. I know you're not a huge fan of BABA, but what about stocks like Enphase, Intel, Palantir, and all those good stuff, and Tesla? And, you know, and I did a couple of videos on this, you know, for the members and stuff, last Tuesday and Thursday and stuff. And what you're really looking at and what's happening here is, like, people wonder, like, how come the Russell is going so strong right now? And it really has to do with earnings, believe it or not. A lot of shorts are covering. What you're seeing is, see the E at the bottom? You're starting to see a lot of small caps reported the last few weeks, still a lot more to go, and they're getting these big pops on earnings because they're either beating earnings or the shorts are finally just capitulating and covering, right? So does that mean they're going to continue to go up? Very well could. But this is the kind of stuff you're looking at. Even the ones that had like drops on earnings, like how fast they're recovering those drops is pretty interesting when you look at it as a whole. And of course, you pull up something like, say, a Celsius, for example. That's another one. It trades on the Russell 2000. I mean, this thing had massive move up, absolutely massive. And, you know, you look at it and you're like, yep, there you go. I mean, that's a huge move up for this thing. And then, of course, you pull up SMCI and you get in, you know, the same thing where it had a huge thing on earnings. This, of course, has rallied just unbelievably. And then, of course, getting ready to do another breakout, of course. Well, actually, it did a breakout on Friday of that little wedge formation. But again, this is what you're seeing on the Russell 2000. You look over at oil, any kind of, you know, energy. I mean, the trend is your friend until it's not, right? When this one's been moving up, right? Is that going to continue to happen? We'll have to see. But that's XLE right there. And then if you end up bringing up oil and you're starting to see, you know, these wedges forming, this is how the Russell broke out, right? And ended up getting above that. So it kind of broke up. I don't think it closed above this line yet, so watch that carefully. But when you look at oil, for example, if you're into oil stocks, same thing's happening where it's trending up. This one actually did break above that level. If I drew the same formation here, so that's one of them. Another one's going to end up being Tesla, obviously. This one right here has been lagging like crazy. It's just struggling. And as I talked about, if you watched tomorrow's video, see this where I show it, how NVIDIA has become Tesla now. When it comes to the options, the call sweeps, the driving it up parabolically, that's what's happening. Tesla is not getting these call sweeps anymore. That's how it moves, based on call sweeps, forcing the market makers to buy the stock, and it goes in these parabolic runs, but it can't even close that gap. I mean, it is just weak, man. And I don't think, again, people say it's the EV sector. It really has nothing to do with that because Tesla was the most heavily traded stock. I think it still is, but I like if you got some information or some kind of data you can show where maybe NVIDIA is the most traded stock now, or some of the other semiconductors, because it ain't Tesla right now. It's just struggling. But a lot of people went into this because they're, oh wow, look, 175 to 198, 200 is a good one. But right now you're really in this range, and you could draw that farther back if you wanted to. But it is just struggling until it fills that gap. But you know, there's just a couple ideas for you. Let me know what you think in the comments and everything, and if you got any of those. Now, next one comes from Kevin here. He says, can the yield curve uninvert without rate cuts from the Fed? If not, then would it that make the Fed the sole reason for a recession? And when we look at it, you can pretty much right on the money. I mean, the deepest inversion we've ever had. But when you look, there's your yield curve coming up, right, and uninverting. And when we look back at this, and we'll look a little closer, eyeballing it, and say, well, actually, if we bring up the Fed funds rate on top of this, 3 of the last 4, the Fed actually did cut, and then it uninverted, all right? And so when we pull this up, you can see right there. And so, yeah, it looks like they're going to have, especially as deep as it is, have to cut to actually uninvert this thing. That tends to make sense if you look at all of these. And if we zoom in, this is where we're at now. So you can see still inverted, has not uninverted, which means it crosses that black line, which is the 0 line right there. But when you go back and you look at the '08 one, that right there actually uninverted twice without them having to cut. And then when they cut, that's when you really saw it just take off, right? Then you go back to .com, though, they were actually cutting before it actually uninverted. And then the one before that, you can see they were cutting, then it finally uninverted. And so, you know, looking at this right here, it looks like, especially as deep as it is, they will have to uninvert. And yes, if they don't cut and we go into recession, then yeah, if it's not uninverted, they are the sole purposes of that. And we'll see if the market can, or the economy that is, can sustain higher rates. Right now it's doing it. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, some of you guys asked me to look at stocks here. Again, don't get offended or anything. And, here's, I think, 4 of the stocks you asked me to look at. And you can see Penn National. Oh, boy. I mean, this is a hot bunch of garbage right here. A heaping pile of dog crap is what this stock is. I mean, look at this. I mean, to be down that much, remember the market turned, right? Look at DraftKings. Look what DraftKings did with the market turn. Look how big, look how much it's up. And then Penn, at the same time, so you're talking about 246% of the market turn, and then you got old whopping Penn there, ends up dropping 55% at the same time. That is crazy. Now, when you look at this, the good thing is, I'll point out some positives. You do have some bullish divergence on your RSI, right? Higher highs right there, or higher lows, I should say, versus, lower lows right there on the chart. Maybe that means it finally bottomed out. We'll see. Again, I would just draw a trend line like this. I'm not getting the stock or anything. I'm just saying if you are, I would draw a trend line here and say maybe if it breaks above it, you finally get some momentum going right here. But then when you look at what happened last earnings, look at that. Dropped 28% on this last earnings. So I'm not even looking at earnings. I'm strictly going off these by the chart. Okay, so as you know, not good. Okay, not good at all. But when you come up here and we'll pull up, so just to get that trend line, it's a 36% move. The MACD is getting a bullish cross on the daily, so that's a plus. So whoever's in this, I'm hoping it moves up for you, that line. It's a big move to the line of 35%. Maybe it finally gets some love, right? And again, the thing about this one is it can still drop farther because you ain't hit the COVID low yet, and this one's been around a while. And so it's still got lower lows if it decides to go there. Obviously, you're sitting on some kind of support right now. So hopefully this bounces for you. If you're asking about it, I assume you're in it. Let me know in the comments. But once it breaks above that trend line, which is 35% above, then you should finally start to get to some love because the MACD should be above that 0 line as well. And that's usually when you get your big moves. Now, looking at another one. Hot steaming pile of garbage. Or actually dog crap. Chewy. Look at this one. There's another one. I mean, everything else is going up. This thing, look at this thing. Just still trending down, right? Maybe it's finally basing out finally, but again, that trend line goes way back. So when you break above that, you should get some momentum. Again, bullish divergence on the RSI down there if you look, but this one right here, as the market's turned, it's down 45% while everything else is just raging up, right? And so, this is another one. I think it's the SPAC, SPAC, how it came forward. Most of these are dead. Still down 86% from all-time high. So, sometimes you look at it and go, there's nowhere to go but up, right? I mean, that's what you would think on this one. And so, again, bullish divergence on the RSI. Maybe it's finally going to get some love is what you're looking at here. And when you pull in the MACD again, you look for that MACD to get to that 0 line and get above it. When that happens, this has big moves, 30, 40, 50%, okay? It's one of those big movers. And so, if it does happen, it gets above the 50, MACD gets below the 0, you break that trend line, it'll be like a rocket ship. Who knows for a short amount of time or not. It has a lot to get through. Okay. Another one, Rocket Lab. Oh boy, look at that one. Just crushed, man. Everything else is going up. This one just pretty much doing nothing, right? But again, look at the MACD on this one. When it gets above the 0, it rockets up. Not to be a smart aleck, but it does. You go the daily, again, MACD, the momentum sucks on this thing. Obviously, earnings didn't do anything for it. Again, I would just draw a trend line here. That's how I like to do it. Because they'll butt up against this thing, butt up against it, and then they'll break out and explode. And it's usually going to be in configuration with your momentum actually getting some love. So we'll see how this one, see if it keeps wedging in here or not. And, I stopped playing with these space stocks a long time ago, man. Again, I think this one's a SPAC too, a SPAC, if I'm not mistaken. And so, you're just kind of waiting for momentum to come in on this one. And so if you're in it, let me know in the comments or what you're doing with this one. But I would play this the same way as the one I just talked about. Now, Cleveland Cliffs, totally different. This one's all about the levels, right? I don't get big moves out of this thing at all. It's a steady eddy. I believe it's more of a dividend type play. But again, we just pull at these levels right here. It broke through one, retested, moved up. If it breaks through this level, look for the retest and move up, okay? You can see in the past where I got some lines drawn where it had failed to do that. And so again, let me know in the comments, whoever asked about this one, if you're getting in this for a dividend play or you're looking for a big move, you can see the momentum. I mean, the RSI and everything is above where it needs to be and stuff, but this is not a big mover. This is not a tech stock or anything. And so right now, the trend seems to be shifting up. And so you need to look for this to get above the next level, retest, and then continue to take off. And the last comment here says, despite the political division in this country, members of Congress always seem to be able to come together to kill any bill that prevents them from trading individual stocks. It's happened at least twice now that bills have been killed with a bipartisan effort. And don't forget, it's not about just them trading stocks. And they're referring to Nancy Pelosi, how she's just killing it in NVIDIA. Her husband is, that is. And also was the latest PAN Palo Alto, for example. And so killing it in that one as well. And so, yeah, they not only vote down that, they also vote down term limits, right? It's the only thing the whole country agrees on is term limits and them not be able to trade stocks by like 80 to 90%. We don't agree on anything in this country, but we agree on that. But Congress has to pass that against themselves, and they will never do it, right? That's why you should. That's the only thing I think. When you talk about a politician you're going to vote in, you ask them those two questions. Are you going to vote term limits on yourself, or are you going to vote where y'all can't trade stocks and stuff? If they say no, don't vote them in. It's that easy. Right, and then get their butts out, the ones that are in there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But it'll never happen because everybody's just too brainwashed in what party they believe in. They're going to look out for me and help me a lot. So that's kind of where we're at. So that'll never happen. But I figured I'd end it on that anyway. So hope you guys got something out of it. Hit that like, subscribe button. Really appreciate everything. Please feel free to put more questions and comments down there. I really appreciate everything, guys. And I'll end up seeing you tomorrow to set the week up. Okay? Have a good one.